Welcome back to Lucore Automotive. We are here with the Project Rebirth GMC pickup truck for Mark Coben. It is finally time to put this truck back together. As anybody who is familiar with rebuilding vehicles on a truly, normal time scale, none of this thing goes according to plan. There's always snags in the process. So we ran into a little bit of issues with this thing when we took it apart. A couple things that needed to be fixed, but generally speaking, it was in pretty good shape. It just takes a little bit longer than everybody ever wants it to take. So it's been about 2.5 to 3 months since we took this truck apart. As you saw in part 1 of this, which if you haven't seen, we highly recommend you watch, it did pretty well on the dyno. The numbers don't lie. We did switch around how the cam is set up. Otherwise, most of this is exactly how God and GM intended this motor to be. Old school, LS6, 454, 1970s, GM power. So we didn't do anything totally crazy. It's designed to do a little bit more hauling than hot rodding. This truck is actually going to be doing some Harley hauling. The engine builder whose father's truck this is owns quite a few Harleys and likes to go do rallies with those. So this truck is going to actually be doing truck things. It's not just going to be hot rodding. So we did change around a little bit of how that works. Made a ton of power, gorgeous torque table, not even a curve. Going to be fantastic for what this truck will do. It will also probably smoke a set of tires off the back of this thing. So motor's all done. We're going to get this thing finished, all fully dressed and ready to go back in the hole. We'll get the transmission mated back up, which you'll get to see that whole process. We're going to time-lapse this entire process, so we'll cut back and forth so you guys can see from start to finish how this actually goes. So anybody who tells you they did this in a weekend is probably lying or worked way too hard.
The 454 now in this truck is by no means the original equipment that came in it. Gone were the original motor that were in this truck long ago. When Mark brought this thing back to life, it was originally running with a 307 small block with a 4-speed Muncie behind it. After that blew up, he put a small block Chevy 350 in it. And after that blew up, then became the big block conversion. Now the front end of this truck is actually out of a 1978 Chevy pickup truck. So the front frame rails are actually modified to be able to handle a Chevy big block. That was done in the early 90s. The transmission behind this thing is a very beefed up unit. This is not by any means a bone stock unit. After blowing up multiple transmissions, this guy has been designed to handle the abuse and power that this truck creates. It also, as you can see, has an old school overdrive unit on the back of it. Now this actual overdrive unit was kind of pre anybody ever using overdrive units on street cars. This is actually a Doug Nash overdrive unit off of a RV, so it's rated for something along the lines of 20 to 30,000 pounds of weight versus the maybe 6,000 pounds that it's going to normally actually see, at least in this truck.
Alright, so motor's in, transmission's in, drive shaft's in. Now it's time to start working on under the hood stuff. So right now we're battling a little bit of a fitment issue, and if you're ever in the hot rod world, fitment is always an issue. This truck was never built to have this motor in between the fenders, so everything is a little bit custom. First off, when we changed over to a different timing setup on the front, the water pump is no longer clearing the brand new timing cover. It's got 2 recesses for the bolts to sit into. Unfortunately, it's only got holes for the top 2 bolts, not for the bottom 2 bolts on the back cover of the water pump. So we've got to clearance those a little bit. A couple of other small clearance issues we got to wrap up there. An interesting note on this truck, these headers that are on this have recently been sent to Jet Coat. They went ahead and redid all of those headers, and they are actually 2 different headers from 2 different manufacturers because nobody made a header set that would fit between the frame rails on this truck. So they're actually 2 totally different sets of headers. Oddly, they're also circle port and square port headers, which is a little bit of a challenge. So we got to make sure we've got a gasket solution that'll seal up the passenger side properly. So
This truck has had round poured headers on square poured heads. So it's going to go tickety, tickety, tickety because exhaust manifold gaskets are not going to seal up with the headers. So we have to find a resolution for that. And didn't think about that when I took it apart 3 months ago. Glad we're looking at it now so that we can resolve this hopefully tomorrow.
Time to start running a couple of lines, get the fuel pump set up. The other issue we ran into is the brand new, beautiful Performance Research valve covers we want to run on this truck. Unfortunately, which is what we need to be able to clear the rockers, and we ran on the dyno so we know these were perfect, run into the brake booster here. As you can see, the brake booster actually sits about 3/4 over the top of the head, so the bevel cut on there won't clear that. So what we're going to have to do is we reached out to our wonderful people at Jegs and got a smaller brake booster. This is a 9-inch brake booster. We got a set of 7-inch brake boosters for this. So we're going to actually swap out that brake booster, which should give us an extra inch of clearance, so we can get our new super sexy valve covers on there and start buttoning up that side of things. So that's where we are at the moment. Got a little bit of customization to do, but in the hot rodding world, that's how it always works. We're getting pretty close. Engine sitting where it's supposed to. All the accessories are run. We solved the brake booster issue with running a smaller brake booster. We went down from a 9-inch to a 7-inch, which will allow us to clear these nice tall valve covers from Performance Research, which we saw in the dyno video, so we know they clear all of the hardware underneath. We had a couple of spark plug wires we had to fix some connections with, a couple of issues with fuel pump fitment and that kind of thing, but otherwise most everything else took care of what it needed to take care of. Now we run into the interesting parts. As with everything hot rodding, it never goes according to plan. So we ran into some issues with the new front cover clearing the water pump. We fixed those issues. That was kind of a nightmare, but we got that part fixed. We got our new water pump, or we got our old water pump on here, and everything is ready to rock and roll. So this was the old radiator that came out of this truck. This was originally built in the mid-'80s at Aero Radiator over here in Hilliard, Ohio. And this was custom made directly for this truck. The filler neck, instead of being on the top, is an angled filler neck that comes off the top. Your output off the bottom is a angled output off the bottom. It's also a slow flow core, so actually your coolant flows in and then down and back up and back down. So it allows for much better coolant usage. Unfortunately, this coolant, or this radiator, over 30 years has plugged up and rotted apart on the inside, so it's no longer functional. Unfortunately, the cost to recore this guy and rebuild this radiator in today's economy is exorbitantly expensive, so we needed to find another solution. So this is our new radiator. Comes from a company up in the Chicago area. This is built as a direct drop-in replacement for 57 to 59 Chevy and GMC trucks. This is the framing out of that truck. As you can see, it doesn't exactly fit properly. Being that the original one was custom made and everything about this truck is custom, this is going to require some custom work. New tabs to be able to mount this guy. We've got to mount it a little bit taller or a little higher in the framing because this radiator is actually about 3 inches shorter than that old radiator is. However, given it's aluminum, we should get considerably better cooling out of it. It also does have a heavy-duty automatic transmission fluid cooler in it, which is really nice to have. We do have a little bit of an issue with the filler top being a directly north filler top instead of an angled out filler top. The bottom part, that won't be a problem. Now the other issue we ran into, this is our fan shroud setup for this new radiator. As you can see, it's a center mounted large fan. Chrome, you know, it's a hot rod. Now the problem is, because this is a center mounted fan, it puts all of the biggest amount of depth right in the middle of that process. And as you can see, we do not have a whole lot of room here. So we have 6.5 inches from mounting point to the nose of this water pump. And unfortunately, with the way that that radiator sits, with that extra large centered fan, is that largest point is right up against this water pump. So we have to come up with a solution for that. So, as all things hot rodding go, we're going to take two and make one. The old fan shroud setup on the old radiator is this guy here. It runs 4 corner mounted fans. The nice thing with this one was the actual nose of that water pump sat right in between them. So we're going to kind of replicate that process with this new radiator. So we're going to steal those fans. We're going to make this template, which is exactly the same size of the shroud for the new radiator. We're going to transplant those fans onto this template. We're going to space them out so that it clears just like the old one did, and hopefully it all fits. All right, so as you can see, she's finally done. We are down at Liquid Vision. Jesse Price is our detailer down here that has done an absolutely fantastic job on this GMC pickup truck. So you've seen this thing come back together, and it was kind of a nightmare. Normally speaking, whenever you take a car apart and put it back together again, you kind of expect things are going to go back together normally. Obviously not the case on this truck, but it's all done. It looks fantastic. Jesse did a fantastic job on the paint, getting it to pop and shine just the way it's supposed to. And keep in mind, this is paint from 1980s, so it's mostly single stage, old school paint. So it looks gorgeous, chrome pops fantastically. We're going to show you what we finally got finished under the hood. Now there is 454 cubic inches of old school GM muscle. It is rebuilt freshly from performance research, and this thing makes some serious power. As you saw on the dyno, 475 horsepower and near as makes no difference, 500 foot-pounds of torque for a long, long time. This guy is set up to be able to do some actual truck stuff, not just hot rodding, and it looks absolutely fantastic. So as you saw, we ran into some serious headaches when it came to the cooling system. Gone is the original chrome fan that came with this radiator assembly. We had our good friends downtown fab us up this new plate. So this piece fits exactly over top of this radiator. We scavenged 3 of the 4 fans off the old setup, spaced those out so that it clears the center mounted water pump, and as you can see, everything works perfectly. We also ran this off of thermostatic controls. So no longer do you have an on-off switch under the dash and have to remember to make sure you turn on your cooling fan. Now the system's automated, so it automatically comes on at 170 degrees. Keep this nasty big block cool. So nearly 6 months of rebuild, engine's brand new, transmission's brand new. Let's take this thing for a ride. Wait a minute, it's the middle of February in Ohio. I'm not taking this thing out on the road. Tell you what, we'll come back to that. So, we'll make this another episode. If you've liked what you've seen on this project and on the others, please remember, as always, like, subscribe, toss us a comment in the comments below. We always appreciate hearing back from our fans, seeing the things that we do. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.